Hey y'all, welcome to day 2 of Unit 8. Today is all about technological advances during the Industrial Revolution and how they had cultural impacts. But before we get going on your notes, there's one thing I need for you to do. If you will look in your notes, okay, this is the page that you will be taking your notes on today, okay, the technological advances. If you look on the next page, it is a duplicate of the last page of notes, the why the Industrial Revolution happened in England. So if you will take this page and put a big X through it, okay, you are not going to take notes on that page, but I do want you to save the summary part down at the bottom, okay, because you will need that space because you're going to summarize an activity that you do in class along with your notes as well. So let's just go ahead and jump right on into our industrial advances. So do you know what this is? Okay, this is a cotton blossom, and this plant changed the lives of so many people. England's cotton came from plantations in the southern United States during the 1790s, and it took forever to remove the seeds by hand. Plus, it was really hard work. Well, Eli Whitney, he was an American inventor. He invented the cotton gin in 1793, and this basic machine multiplied the amount of cotton that could be cleaned so much that in 1790, American cotton population was about 1.5 million pounds, and it increased to 85 million pounds in about 20 years. Now, the cotton didn't pick itself, okay, and this is the first thing that you need to write down in your notes. The invention of the cotton gin increased the demand for slaves on American plantations. So if you look at this chart, you can see that there is a direct correlation between the invention of the cotton gin and the demand for slavery. Both absolutely skyrocket. But look at how slavery was impacted between 1840 and 1860. It was just, it doubled, it more than doubled. So it's important for you to know that main fact here is that the invention of the cotton gin increased the demand for slavery, okay? Now, slavery was outlawed in Britain in 1833, but it wasn't until 1863 when slavery was outlawed in the United States. So we know for sure that the Industrial Revolution impacted the lives of Africans and those who were forced into slavery. All right, women and children especially were impacted by the Industrial Revolution. We've already talked about the end of the cottage system, that, you know, once factories were being built, the factory owners needed people to work in the factories and to run them, and to make the various goods and products that they were making in their factories. So the cottage system was replaced by the factory system. Working conditions were terrible. They were absolutely terrible, deplorable, okay? Here's an idea of what a day in the life of a child laborer would have been like. This is a testimony that was given to a parliamentary committee about the conditions of child laborers in the textile industry. And this is according to William Cooper, who began working in the textile industry in a textile factory when he was 10 years old. The workday began at 5 a.m. William and his sister would wake up around 4 or 4:30 so they could be at work by 5. If they had breakfast to eat, it was eaten on the run to work. At noon, the children would receive 40 minutes break for lunch. And this is the only break they got all day. Kids often got tired and sleepy around 3 p.m., so in order for them to be awake for their shift, adults often whipped them. 6 p.m. came and went with no dinner break. Children would eat their dinners just as they had eaten their breakfast on the run on the way home at night. At 9 p.m., William's shift ended. He was free to go home after working his 16-hour shift, but his sister, however, had to work an additional 2 hours, but she still had to be back at work at 5 a.m. the next day. The wages were low because factory owners could pay women and children, they could pay women less than they paid a man, and children were only paid a fraction of a price of what an adult would have been paid. Working conditions were extremely dangerous, and many times workers were crammed into rooms with machinery and heavy equipment with only one door in or out. So if there were to have been a fire, everyone would have to jam through one door. Air quality within the factories was terrible as well. Now, if you had been a man during the Industrial Revolution, chances are you would have a difficult time finding a job to support your family. Men had to compete with women and children for jobs. And if I'm a factory owner and I can hire women and children for much less than a man, you better believe I'm going to do that, because child labor equaled two things. It kept the cost of production low, which meant that profits would be high. If you remember from the video last class, we saw where children were working in the coal mines, and officially they started at the age of 8. Okay, but remember that some children began working as early as 3 and 5 years old. Okay, and this was their job. They were called a hurrier, or they were the trapper. So they would keep the trap door open so that the hurrier could push the coal that they were mining out of the mine. Okay. So finally, in 1842, the Mines Act was passed. And what it did was it prohibited females and children under the age of 10 from working in the mines. But still, 10 years old, I mean, that's hardly old enough to work anywhere. I mean, I don't know many 10-year-olds that could handle working a job anywhere. So not great working conditions there at all. All right, so this was super quick. I know that you might have questions, but we are going to talk more about the Industrial Revolution and the VIPs of the Industrial Revolution today in class. Well, we've already done that because now you're watching the video after we've done the VIPs. So when you do your summaries tonight, please make sure that you actually summarize all of the notes that you have on this page. You also need to summarize the VIPs, the charts that you filled out in class. Make sure you summarize the inventors and their inventions as well. I've got a little note in there in your notes to remind you of that too. So other than that, I'll see you next class.